Hi again everybody, welcome to my new video. In this one it'll be the first of what I'm referring to as a Windows brief. And I'm going to cover an important point about the Windows operating system and some hardware configuration associated with that everybody should know. What I have here are two, what we refer to as hard drives. This one here is a standard 3.5-inch hard drive, 250 gigabytes. It's a functional drive. In fact, you've probably seen it used in a previous video of mine. And then I have here a USB stick, a 16 gigabyte USB stick that I use. I bought these in a bunch and I use them all the time. However, this one has been corrupted, and corrupted to the point where it cannot easily be reused. So I'm going to show you a tool today that will allow us to fix it. It's called DiskPart. It's abbreviation for disk partitioning. And this tool has been around in Windows since Windows XP, probably in the early 2000s, maybe 2001, 2002, somewhere in that time frame. However, that tool was not the origination of the concept. You would have to go back 20 years earlier to a tool called F-Disk. It came out with the first PC operating system called MS-DOS, which was used in the first IBM PC XTs that were released way back when. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you first of all a working one. I have a working 16 gigabyte USB stick, and I'm going to show you what it looks like on the computer. And then I'm going to show you this one. Now, this one got corrupted when I installed a Linux variant onto it. And then I tried to delete it, but when deleting it, sometimes it doesn't clean things up on the disk properly. So it has residual bad partitions on it that will have to be cleaned up. And let me show you what I'm going to do here on my PC, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, let me start by putting in the good USB stick into the computer. What you see on the screen right now is this PC window showing what drives are mapped and which drives are installed. As I put this one into my USB 3.0, we see a change. A new USB drive F has jumped in at 14.6 gigabytes. Now that's the formatted size. It's really a 16 gigabyte USB stick. And it's a standard USB stick. I can open it up. I can add files, delete files, use it for whatever I want up to its limit in size without any problem whatsoever. Now let me put the bad one in. I'll just put it into the second 3.1 slot. See what we got. Now the second one opened up a drive K, and look at the size of this drive though. It's exactly the same as the one I put in before that's currently drive F, but it says we have only a 492 kilobyte USB stick and 490 kilobytes are used, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now let's take a closer look at it. If I open up this PC by right-clicking on it and then picking Manage, and then I say do disk management, you see the existing hard drives that I have in there. Drive 0, which is my drive C, it shows that here. I have an unallocated space that's on the same drive 0. I have my drive 1, which is my scratch drive that I use when I am creating videos and editing them. However, further down I have two USB sticks. And what you see here is the first one that I put in is called disk 6. And it has a 9 megabyte unallocated space, and it has a 14.64 gigabyte FAT32 partition, healthy partition. However, look at drive 7, the second one that I put in, which it does say the right size here, 14.6 gigabytes, so it knows what the drive is supposed to have on it. However, look what it's done in terms of its partitions. The first partition is shown as a 16 megabyte partition. It says healthy EFI system partition. That is a leftover from the Unix. And then you see a 14.63 gigabyte unallocated. When I deleted the main partition that was put on there, that's what it turned out to be. However, I can't get rid of this one. If I right-click on it and I say delete the volume, which this tool is supposed to allow me to do, first of all, it doesn't even highlight it. I can't even get it to do. I can do a help, but I cannot do a delete volume. So it's in a frozen state. Now this one I could go around and play with maybe a little bit. I can actually maybe create a new simple volume, which would be a regular Windows volume, but there'd be no point in that. I could do that and then delete it again and it still won't be right. So how do I clean this up? How do I make it so that I can use this drive to its fullest extent? And that's where the hidden utility DiskPart comes in. So now to run DiskPart, I'm going to have to actually first run the command line prompt in Windows. Now I happen to already have it as one of my start menu options. I did that shortly after I installed this system because I use it quite often, and I'm logged in as an administrator right now. So I'm going to just right click on that because I don't want it to run under its default permissions. I want it to run as an administrator. A lot of tools like that in Windows have this type of option, and this is one of them. They are not going to run by default as an administrator because of the power that that tool has. So I'm going to select that, and now we need to run the command DiskPart, one word. Now, there is no graphical user interface to this tool in Windows. But if I run DiskPart, this is an interpreted program. So it'll now come up and give its own command. It's saying now we are talking to the utility DiskPart. That's a very traditional way of having your command line programs function. That way it reduced confusion and you knew which program you were in rather than just some random program. Now it has a lot of commands to it. Let me do a list, let me do a help, and you'll see all the commands that DiskPart provides. It's quite a set. I'm only going to use a couple of these in this video. Other ones are self-explanatory. For example, the exit command means we're going to exit this program. Then there's another special purpose one here called remark, R-E-M. It does nothing. It is meant to be used if you're creating a command line script, something that you could run when you need, or you could have Windows run it automatically as it starts up or it shuts down, and it can do certain things for your system, like maybe even kick off a backup. There are other commands out here that are pretty complex, so I'm not going to cover them in this video. I'm only going to cover a couple of them. Let's see, is there anything in particular here? No, I'm not going to get into some of those. But the next command I'm going to use is listed here, and that is list, the list command. So on the list, I display a list of objects. Now, objects can be either disk drives or volumes. Volumes being how disk drives are broken up into partitions. I'm interested in the disk for this purposes of what I'm trying to demonstrate here. So I will do a list, and there's a subcommand to that. I believe I can see the subcommands by typing in list help. Yep. So I can do a list disk, a list partition, a list volume, a list virtual disk. And that's true about all of these commands. They have one or some have two levels of subcommands to them. Unfortunately, there's no real good manual on this. There's several books that have been printed on advanced Windows administration that talk about this tool. But, you know, obviously, you could spend a while reading those books to understand it. I'm trying to give you a brief overview. But let's go ahead now, redo list, but this time I'm going to say list disk. This shows all the disk drives that are currently on this system. The last one is the USB disk. Now, just to show you what I mean, let me put the bad one back in and see what it shows up as. It pops up. And this is the one that shows up. I'm sorry, this is the good one. Let me put the good one back in, is what I did. It now shows up as a drive F, because that's what it was before when I first installed it, and then I had removed it. It's 14.6 gigabytes. Drive K is still our bad one. So what has it done here? If I do list disk one more time, it now has a disk 6. It did not show a disk 6 before because I had taken it out. So now we know that disk 7 is the one that we want. That is the bad one. Before I can do anything to disk 7, I now have to select it. That's one of the other commands up on that list. The select command right up here. Select help, just to see what we can select. We can select disk, partition, volume, vdisk. Just like list had a subcommand, select has a set of subcommands as well. I want to select the disk, and what I have to do is give it the disk number I want to select. So I will go select disk 7. That's the bad one. Now I can go ahead and do other functions to it, but the only function I'm interested for purpose of this demonstration is the clean function. And if I go back up to the list of commands, there is a clean one. Clean clears the configuration information or all information off of a disk. That includes all partition information. So what I'm going to do now, I have disk 7 selected. I'm going to go ahead and just say clean. I don't have to give it a number because that's the one I have focus on, disk 7. That's what they refer to it in this program. So if I say clean, it'll clean only disk 7. Now it's telling me that it has a problem. It doesn't see the drive anymore. I'm going to go ahead and pull that bad one out. It's actually got a blinking light on it right now. I'll close this window. If I come over here now, I see I still have my disk F in. It's still good. No problem with that one, right? If I put the bad one that I had just cleaned in now, this is as if it came directly from the factory, and you will sometimes see this happen when you buy new USB sticks or a new hard drive, as I mentioned before. If you just plugged it in, let's say through a docking station, if it doesn't see any formatting or partition information at all, it will go ahead and give you a prompt, and the prompt it gives you is to insert a disk because it doesn't recognize it at all. So what I'm going to do here, I could have used DiskPart to format it. I could have created a partition and formatted, or I could come in here. Let me show you this. If I go and reopen the regular Windows management program, so I'll click on Manage and then click on Disk Management, it shows the drive is unallocated. So what I can do here, which is the way I recommend doing it, by the way, even though you could do it with DiskPart, these commands are very dangerous, and if you do the wrong drive, you got a problem. So I would say at this point we're actually done with DiskPart, and we'll do the rest of the things using the standard utilities that Windows provides normally. So I'm going to do an exit here. So I have a 14.65 gigabyte unallocated. Everything is unallocated. There's no partitions on it though. So if I right click on it, I can say create a new simple volume. Then it gives you a wizard. And I'm just going to say next. This creates the actual volume, which includes creating a partition for us. How big do I want the volume? Now I could make it the full amount, which it defaults to. If I now click next to this, it'll become drive L. I could change it to other available drives if I want. It shows all the available drives I could make it. I'll let it default to the drive L. And then I'll click next. It'll do NTFS, the default Windows file system. Leave everything else as default. I could give it a label, but I'll just leave it as new volume. It'll do a quick format, or I can turn that off and it'll do a full detailed format. Let's leave it as quick for now. Now it tells us what it's going to do. If I want to finish, it'll do these things to that drive, which is what I'm going to do. Finish, and there we go. It's formatting right now. That's why we have the little circle. And now it opened up. So it not only assigned it as the new drive L, which you see here, new volume L, but it's completely formatted. So now that drive is completely repaired. And I can close this, and you can see here now it's drive L. I can open it up, I can do whatever I can use it. And the same utility will work for a regular hard drive that you go through a docking station. For example, if you look back at one of my earlier videos, you will see that I had a problem when I tried to replace my hard drive in one of my servers. Well, I had made the mistake, and I explained that in the video, of having first plugged this into Windows through a docking station, the drive that I was going to use as a replacement. And I went ahead and did that. I created a simple volume on it. And unfortunately, the operating system that's running the server has to have a completely wiped volume with no partition information on it. It's a simple operating system. It can't deal with something that has partitions on it. It wants to create its own partition format. So it would just sit there and not let me do anything with it. I couldn't make it part of the RAID array. I couldn't do anything. I took it out, and I think I showed it on this video, and I put it into my main PC, and I did this same utility, DiskPart, and it went ahead and properly created it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to cover today, this DiskPart utility. Hopefully you got something out of it, and if you did, it would be real nice if you did me a favor and subscribe to my channel. My head will pop up here in a moment. Click on it, follow along, and subscribe. That would be very helpful to me, and it would help my channel grow at the level that would allow me to buy new equipment and possibly create some more advanced videos for everybody. Anyway, thanks for watching.